Hey, Culpeper Presbyterian Church family, it's Pastor Chris. I am recording this video for you at the request of your PNC, your Pastoral Nominating Committee. Surely you are aware by now that we are less than 2 weeks away from the congregational meeting at which you will be presented with the final candidate for your installed pastorate. But as we gear up for that, your PNC asked me to record a message for all of you about my own search and my inquiry or exploration into what was going to be next for me and where I'm headed next. So I want to start with a story because it's a story that really informed my own search for what's next. It ended up being my prayer for my search and my guiding principle in it. So there's a really well-known business writer and consultant by the name of Peter Drucker, a Christian man, who had a meeting with another business consultant and researcher and writer by the name of Jim Collins. Now, in our day and time, 2020, Jim Collins is a well-established business researcher, consultant, writer, but at the time he was not. He was just starting out. So Collins comes to Peter Drucker and says, "This is going so poorly, I don't know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to take care of my family." And Drucker's reply to him was, Jim, how many times in your life has your family gone without a meal? How many times have you actually not been able to pay your bills?" And the answer was never. And so Drucker said, "Jim, I think you're asking the wrong question. You should not be thinking about how you're going to survive. You should be thinking about how you can be of use." And that's the expression that stuck with me. How can I be of use? And so as I began my search, I asked God that He simply would direct me to where I can be of use in His kingdom. Because surely there are some things that I can do well, and equally there are things that I cannot do well. There are places I can serve well and places I could not. So just help me be of use. My search started in earnest in January of this year. Another consideration for Heather and me was that we didn't want to move my son Eli out of his high school if it was going to be for an interim or short-term pastorate. We only wanted to relocate our family if it was going to be for something permanent. So what that meant is I interviewed for some interim pastorates here in Northern Virginia. So think Fredericksburg, Richmond, the D.C. area. But we also, because we've now very literally lived coast to coast and several points in between, we were open to nationwide placement and interviewing for installed pastorates or permanent pastorates. And sure enough, that's exactly what unfolded. Fred, our executive presbyter in the Presbytery of the James, says that at first, this search process can feel like drinking from a fire hose because you've got so many requests for interviews coming at you all at once. And so I interviewed from California to Texas, to Alabama, to Michigan, to New York, to Florida, and all kinds of states and places in between. And it was almost too much to keep up with. I do want to let you know, and the PNC wants to let you know too, that at some point the PNC approached our presbytery about me applying to be your next installed pastor. Now you need to understand that in our presbytery, that almost never happens. In fact, the way the interim pastor contract reads, it cannot happen. But our PNC felt strongly enough about the bond that we had established as pastor and church that they wanted to see. And I knew that this was going to be a tall hill to climb. I'm not entirely sure how it would have turned out had we had tried to pursue that. But when they told me that they had inquired with the presbytery about it, my response was, well, I need time. And part of why I needed time was very practical. I'm new to the PCUSA, our denomination. Remember that in Michigan, I was in the Reformed Church. So I have a lot to learn about what the PCUSA is like and what churches coast to coast are like. And I just needed time to see where God needed me to be of use. So we waited. And they went about their work and worked through dozens upon dozens upon dozens of pastoral candidates, and I interviewed. And sure enough, over the course of March and April, things began to solidify for both the PNC and for me. And God called them to reach out to this person that they will present to you on the 28th. And as it happens, a church reached out to me and asked me to come and be their next pastor too. So, even though I didn't know it at the time when I started my search, I'm actually going to be staying in Virginia. I'm going to be headed over to Kirkwood Presbyterian Church in the Newport News, Yorktown area, and I will be their installed or permanent pastor. Now, this immediately makes you wonder, well, what kind of relationship can I continue to have with you, especially because so many of us now are friendly, so many of us have developed these deep bonds and connections with each other. Well, now I am very much like Pastor Wayne. My relationship with you is going to be largely dictated by the person who comes here as your next installed pastor. But rest assured, if you're my friend on Facebook, you can stay my friend on Facebook. We can communicate via email. If you're ever visiting down in the Newport News, Yorktown area, you are more than welcome to come to my church. I'd love to see you. Those kinds of things are all okay. What we cannot do is I can't talk to you about this church or your next pastor or help you sort those things through. That would be out of bounds for me. Now, my hope is, because I'm going to land 2.5 hours away from here, I will get to see some of you sometime. That is my hope. If nothing else, what I want you to hear in this story is that God has been faithful both to me and my family and to you, and that He has led very clearly for me to go to Kirkwood Presbyterian and for your next minister to come here. And I am so grateful for the time that we have had together, and I'll get a chance to speak more about that over my last 4 Sundays with you. But I am also equally sure that the person who is coming here is going to be a great fit for you. I've been able to spend almost 3 hours talking to him so far, and I am thoroughly convinced that he is going to be a great pastor for you and that you will be a great church for him.